Somebody's getting started today, the advice, and I've gotten this question a few times while I'm here, the advice I would tell people is own your market. The most profitable thing you can do is go really deep in the market that you're already in. The most accretive acquisitions that we do, the ones we're looking for now, are the ones where you're already in a market that we're serving, and we can basically bring those doors into what we're already doing. And so that same principle holds true for us, and it holds true for the person that's looking for their first acquisition.
Welcome to Unfiltered, the official podcast of propertymanagement.com. Still live at Broker Owner here in New Orleans, but have a special guest, Mr. Matthew Whitaker, founder, CEO at Evernest. Matthew, thanks for coming in the van.
Man, it's great to be here.
Which is funny because we live a half mile from each other.
Yeah.
We work 4 blocks from each other, but now we're together in a van in New Orleans.
Just in a van in New Orleans. Yeah.
A van down by the river.
Yeah, literally.
Exactly.
We actually are by the river.
Yeah, that's the first time I've used that line. I'm kind of regretting all the other episodes. So a little RIP Chris Farley
You're
there.
more creative with me in the van. You should feel comfortable.
Yeah. This is the van. It's been interesting inviting people to the van in New Orleans. It's already a pretty sketchy town.
Yeah.
But then when you walk up to people, some friends of friends and say, "Hey man, we'd love to have you in the van."
Yeah, we're just going to get you in the van in this garage. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Exactly. And I'm surprised we haven't had any local visitors walk up. Put it like that.
Y'all look so official and unassuming that you maybe you're just scaring everybody off.
So I don't know Ray Hesman that well, but he was in an interview yesterday and he didn't know we were in the van and he banged on the window. First thought, homeless guy.
Yeah.
Nothing is right.
This is
Ray,
it.
I know you're great.
We're having this is it. The confrontation we were afraid of.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool. Well, once again, appreciate you joining us. I know you got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I actually had to bag my way on here. Y'all are interviewing all the who's who in property management, and I had to beg Chuck to let me come on. So I really appreciate y'all having me on.
Well, I told you, it's like inviting Michelangelo to Sips and Strokes, man. You got the #1 pod in property management, so we're trying to be like you.
I don't know about that. I don't know. There's some really good ones out there.
Oh, definitely. Well, we got a lot to talk about. I know you have had other interviews, episodes, whatever you want to call them, and even your own, walking through the birth, the growth, everything with Evernest. Awesome series on Spotify about that. But for those who have not listened to that or coming in a little blind, quickly tell us, who is Evernest and current size of the company, and in general, what do you do?
Yeah, so I was in the real estate business. I was buying and selling houses. Did that from the time I was 23 till the time I was 28. Market crashes in 2008. I'm stuck with 30 doors that I can't sell. After swearing I'm never going to be a real estate agent or a property manager, I become both. And from 2008 to 2013, just kind of bounced along and started managing houses for other people just to make ends meet. And in 2013, 2014, I went to a NARPM conference, which is funny because here we are at a NARPM conference, and looked around the room and just thought, hey, I think I can build a regional or a national property management company. I just feel like that everybody here is hyper local and all of them appear to do a good job, but there's no national brand. And so got really excited about that, came home and got busy building the business. And we've kind of built the business 2 ways. One is just organically, I was out beating on doors, trying to add management agreements and doing it, the old fashioned way. And then the other way, I had a friend of mine who was also in the business, and he decided he wanted to get out of the business, and he sold the business to me. And it was an aha moment for me that I could buy somebody's business, roll it into what we were doing, and it created a more efficient company. For us, that business was in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where I started the business and where we're based. It just allowed us to be more profitable because more doors in a market allows us to be much more profitable. So got excited about buying businesses and started on a journey of doing that for about the last decade. So we've bought 30 different property management companies over the last 10 to 12 years. Evernest today is in 19 different states and we're in 50 different markets, and we're continuing to buy. We can talk about it, but the last 2 or 3 years has been pretty slow from a buying standpoint, but things are starting to free up and we're back out looking to grow and acquire again. So It's been a wild ride.
We're going to talk a lot about the acquisitions today. I didn't realize how early in the story acquisitions were a part of Evernest. So, little trivia, Evernest trivia here. How many doors did you have when you made that first acquisition? And then how much growth was that?
Yeah, I think I don't really remember the exact numbers, but my guess is I was like 100 and something, or maybe low 200s. And I think that they managed somewhere around 100 doors as well. So think of it as probably going from 200 to 300, which is a very profitable step if
Yeah.
anybody's done that out there. And feel, it was, because it was so profitable, it was an aha moment. Oh man, like how many times can I do this?
I've had more conversations about acquisitions these last 2.5 days than I have about AI, which
That's
I didn't,
funny.
and maybe it's just the context of me being a recruiter and people looking to grow and
Yeah.
hire, but that even surprised me.
Yeah. I've had a lot of AI conversations. I'll tell you that.
We're gonna get into that too.
Yeah.
So, but for a lot of people, they're looking for that first acquisition. I usually hear it when they're around like 800, want to get to 1,000 or get to 1,500, whatever. So I didn't realize how early it was that that was a part of the DNA. And was that a trend that you started then and kept doing? But it sounds like you went organic, like acquisition, then a lot of organic, and then started acquisitions, or they have they always been woven through?
Well, the first one was an accident because the friend came to me and said, "Hey, can I sell you my business?"
That worked out.
And cut me a really good deal, right? There was no liquid market at the time for property management companies. So cut me a really good deal. And that was kind of the aha moment. And then I bought another business in Birmingham. And that's where we really said, okay, we can start to do like this makes a lot of sense. Somebody's getting started today. The advice, and I've gotten this question a few times while I'm here, the advice I would tell people is own your market. The most profitable thing you can do is go really deep in the market that you're already in. The most accretive acquisitions that we do, the ones we're looking for now, are the ones where you're already in a market that we're serving, and we can basically bring those doors into what we're already doing. And so that same principle holds true for us, and it holds true for the person that's looking for their first acquisition. I think a lot of times people say it's fun to say, "Oh, you're in 50 different markets," or it's fun to say, "I'm in 2 markets," and there is a it's a proud moment to get to move from one office in one market to another market. That felt really good to me. But the most profitable thing you can do is stay focused where you are and only move to the next market when you feel like you've kind of maximized what you can do in that one market.
Interesting, because I feel like in the local market, conversation I had Monday night at the Crane Cruise was, if you feel like you're the best in the market, what suggestions or tips do you have to find those other businesses that may not be as efficient, may not have as many doors, not as impressive operationally or people wise? At what point does it become more of a liability to buy something than an asset?
Yeah, I think you can buy something that's too messy, but my experience has been when you buy somebody that's not as operationally sound as you keep more of those doors.
Interesting.
We've always joked it's better to be the second property manager sometimes than the first. And so if you buy a business from somebody and you kind of like wow them with communication and you wow them with execution, and those clients that you buy are going to be much more sticky. There is a cliff at some point where somebody's too messy and you probably shouldn't mess with that. It's just a huge lift to go from super messy to buttoned up, but we don't hesitate to buy somebody that's not as buttoned up as us because we just feel like the owners are going to get a better experience. The last thing you want to do is buy somebody that's better buttoned up than you, and then all of a sudden you start to drop balls. That would be a problem.
That's interesting. Let's say I catch a wild hare in Birmingham when we get back. I'm inspired by broker owner. Maybe I had too much crawfish and a beat of beer. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done with recruiting. I'm gonna start a property management company. Which, I'm the poser over here talking about property management. I don't even run a property management company. And let's say I get the 200, 300 doors and I come knocking on your door over at the Regions building and say, "Hey, Matthew, come buy me." What are you looking for in an acquisition target that uniquely positions them to be a good fit for Evernest?
Yeah, the biggest thing for us is just low client concentration. Our experience has been if you have a small property management company and you have one client that has an inordinate amount of those doors, that client actually looks at you as more like an employee to them. And so it's hard for us in the Evernest ecosystem to recreate that. right? There's nothing wrong with it because when I got started, I had clients that had a number of doors that were higher than all the other clients, and I treated those. They treated me like I was an employee, and I ran around and did things for them. The challenge just is when you try to transfer those relationships, they don't transfer. So the thing we look at is low client concentration, low units per owner. And then the other thing that's really important is, what does the agreement allow us to do? Sometimes you grew a business by being the cheapest, or you grew a business by, not maybe passing through expenses like work orders and not doing any sort of markup. And if that limits us on what we can do on the backside, then that's not as exciting to us. We like to take the PM business and then grow it in terms of both revenue and also like grow it. I always found too, when I moved into a market, it was easier to grow from 300 to 400 doors than from 0 to 100 doors. So the limitations on the management agreement's another thing. I would make sure, if you want to sell your business, that you give the buyer some optionality.
Interesting. Let's go back to the conversations that you're having at Broker Owner. You mentioned a lot of AI. What are some of these like hallway conversations over coffees and beers that you're having here in New Orleans?
Yeah, well, let's start with AI. I think there's a lot of really interesting and unique AI startups that are happening, and some of these folks are getting some real traction. The two big lifts that I've seen on AI is on the maintenance side, and the other lift I'm seeing is on the leasing side. And so we're having conversations both externally and internally on who do we want to power our leasing, and who do we want to power our maintenance AI. The thing that I think is unique about AI right now, and a lot of people talk about how they can cut expenses with AI, and I think that will come one day. But I think the thing that it's enabling Evernest to do, because we're using it a lot in some places, especially on the leasing side, we're actually a better property manager today than we were 3 months ago, especially than we were 12 months ago. I see this too in some of our NPS scores, that we're starting to execute at a much higher level because of AI. And so these vendors that are powering that, and there's a number of them. I mean, there's probably a handful of AI vendors. We're just trying to figure out how can they plug into what we're already doing and enable us to be better property managers. I mean, some other conversations that we're having are, we're talking just a lot of property managers. You talked about buying companies, and we're starting to have conversations. A lot of people, when they get into their late 50s, early 60s, mid 60s, they're starting to think about retirement, and so we're having some of those conversations with people out in the halls. And it's also catching up with the people that are the movers and shakers in the industry, and trying to find out what's going on, like trying to get a beat on the street, right? You have the Peter Lomans and the Ray Husbands and the people that talk to a lot of property managers, and just trying to find out, hey, what's new? What do we need to be thinking about? So, coming to these conferences, it's a perfect opportunity to get everybody in one market at one time and get a lot accomplished really quickly. My schedule is like literally every hour I've got something to do, and vendors that we already have, like, we're a big Appfolio customer, and I've got 2 different Appfolio meetings while I'm here. So it's just a great time to get caught up in no matter how much AI we have, relationships are still going to be super important
Mhm.
for the foreseeable future, and want to make sure that we're continuing to build those relationships here.
You're a great LinkedIn follow, and you can't say that about a lot of people.
Thank you.
I call it link cringe. A lot of self promotions. I'm so excited about my new opportunity, blank place. But you're a great LinkedIn follow. You talk a lot about AI leadership development, but one thing I really like that you've been posting a lot lately is AI adoption and AI culture in your company, and not just you vibe coding on the weekend. I've had some great posts about that. But tell me more about not just the way you're thinking about using AI in Evernest, like, practically, but how are you creating a culture where you're encouraging it while also giving some boundaries of like, hey, still do your job, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I actually went to Graham, my president, and I said, like, how much of this, taking Claude, for instance, which is basically an AI model. I know, but for the audience out there, how much of this Claude do I need to lean in on? How much do I need to understand? And Graham was like, you just need to go play with it, so that when we're talking about it, you can you'll know what we're talking about. So And the other trick too is like not to be scared to play with it.
Mhm.
And so I got to playing with it, and I've probably been doing it for 60 days, maybe 90 days. And my day now starts in Claude.
Mm.
And it is me, because my job right now is a lot of communication. It's a lot of vision setting. It's a lot of strategy. And I've been using Claude as a thought partner, which is cool because a lot of our accounting team is using it to automate a lot of the accounting tasks. And so it's multifunctional. Again, it gets back to like, how do we become better property managers first? Let's don't even worry about how much it's going to cut out in terms of jobs or whatever. Like, let's just enable everybody to be better. And so the thing we've tried to instill in our team, and it's really catching on, is this is not something to be scared of. Like, go play with it. Go create some in the Google environment. You can create what's called a gem, which is basically like it's basically like a skill in Claude where it says, hey, I can create a gem that, well, perfect example is with our maintenance team. If there's a maintenance work order they don't fully understand, that you can plug it into the gem, and the gem will basically help walk that through with you. So if you have somebody that's only been on the job in maintenance for 30 days, and then they run something they don't understand through that gem, it helps to educate them, and it helps them to understand. It gives them the Evernest process to get that done. And when people in the organization see tools like that being built, it gives them ideas on tools they can build for their team. And so all of a sudden we have all these gems. We have this is one you'll appreciate. We have a gem. We will take an interview, and we're big Who fans, as you well know. But we'll take a recorded interview and plug it into a gem, and it'll rate the interviewer based on how we think an interview should run.
Mm.
One of the hardest things to scale, as you well know, yeah, sorry to jump in, but one of the hardest things to scale, as you know, is how do you scale getting good people? And when you go from 400 to 500 people, or even if you go from 25 to 50, you got to hand off a lot of that interview to people. Now I can tell if somebody's a good interviewer or not based on the gem we built.
That's where I was gonna comment, is that you're saying the interviewer, not the interviewee.
You can do both.
You can do both.
You
I
both.
love it because you're so right. When you start to scale and grow, more people have to have that responsibility. The reality is some people are good at it and some people aren't.
And it gives them feedback. Hey,
Yeah,
you
it
need
helps
to
you be
work on
better.
this. You need to improve this. And that's the way we've approached it. Like, we have our culture is very much a coach. Let's coach you. Let's get better. Let's all get better. Like, we're all going to screw up, but let's make sure we don't do it twice. And we've been able to coach our interviewers to be better. And it's just a really powerful tool to make sure you're getting the right people on the team.
Very practical question here. Do you have a massive like Claude corporate account? And pardon my ignorance here, or is it
We
in
do.
Gemini? It's in Claude. Yeah.
Well,
So everybody's using the
we
same
have
thing.
both. Yeah. So with Gmail, like with our Google account, you actually get Gemini, the paid Gemini version, which is Google's LLM for as a part of that. It's not free, but it's a part of it. And then we also pay for Claude too. Now with Claude, we've been a little more discerning because that's on top of everything we're already spending. So we do have a corporate account, and we're just way more discerning about who gets it, because most of their stuff can get done in Gemini. Claude's just a little bit a different animal.
Yeah, a little more juiced up. Yeah, that's really interesting because I think a lot of times you just see so many owners using it, but you don't hear as much about how the team's using it. What freedom do they give? What constraints do they give within, working hours? So yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's super helpful.
We had a guy that built a model, and it basically he can take a inspection and upload the inspection into the model, and the model spits out how much that's going to cost, our price list and everything. I mean, it's pretty cool. And for somebody to be able to upload that in, it may save that person in 30 minutes to 2 hours. Yeah. So we're just getting a lot of operating leverage, and you need to check these things, but it's in terms of like making sure that the numbers came out. As most people know, these LLMs every now and then will make something up and be super confident about it. I heard somebody say one time about somebody else, they're often wrong, but seldom in doubt. And I wouldn't say that LLMs are often wrong and seldom in doubt, but they are occasionally wrong, but they're seldom in doubt. They're always they're always very certain that what they're giving you is the right answer.
We're living in the future right now, it seems like, with the AI and all that conversation, very exciting. But let's go down memory lane a little bit. Kind of a random question here. What were people talking about at your first couple of broker owners many moons ago?
Yeah, that was the early days of, there was a talk that one guy used to give about like 50 ways to make more money in property management. And it was kind of like the early days of people learning to charge ancillary fees, right? The original, thing was you just made a management fee and that should pay for everything. And so there were some early thinkers around that. And we talked about some of the basics like maintenance and how to improve maintenance and how to use technology. Of course, the technology at the time was super analog technology. Like people would be just terrified today of what we were using when we first got started. But we were early adopters of property management software. Most of that was local on your computer. And then you would maybe when the internet was around, but then we would like sync it with a
Mm.
database. So, it wasn't as real time as it is today.
It'll be interesting in 10, 15 years if someone, a different universe or me and you were talking again. We're talking about AI now, but it'll be funny if they look at that and like, oh yeah, they were just talking about AI.
Yeah.
They were talking about AI in 2026. How silly.
Early AI. Yeah,
Yeah.
they used to have to actually do this,
Yeah. You
and
said
now AI just does it
does it.
for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good stuff. Well, we're starting to wrap up. Once again, appreciate the time. Got a couple questions. This question is interesting. We actually first asked it to Spencer last fall. We've added it to the repertoire
Spencer
since
Sutton?
then. Yeah, he's the
Okay.
first person we ever asked this question
Okay,
to.
so he's been on the pod. He made it on the
We're
pod
back
before
to
I did?
that. We're back to that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, you can take that up with him. So, all right. It's hard running a business, any business. Property management is a very hard industry.
It's harder than so for people need to know property management is harder than a normal business, and let me tell you why. The whole business of the business is problem solving, and that's most businesses. But there is never a Super Bowl where you feel like you've collected all the rent and everybody's happy with you
Yeah.
and you won. And there is also never a time where you feel like the expectations from the owners are that they pay 100% of the rent. There's no work orders. It's just like a really high bar of expectations. So for you property managers out there, y'all need to know it's a harder business than most business. Like we're at Disney World, I'm sure there's some hard things that happen at Disney World, but at the end of the day, there's like a kid smiling and you get some reward. Like there's no kid smiling around here.
Yeah. Wow. Well, how has being in property management changed you as a person? I mean, you're going on what, 15 years,
Yeah,
20 years in property management?
almost 20 years of managing homes. I will tell you, when I was first starting the business, I saw some of the property managers who had been in the business for a long time, and they were really thin-skinned and hard-hearted. And I
Mm,
said, I don't ever want to end up like that, like a mean person. And after being in this business, like I can totally see how they got there. Like it is such a hard business. And, you have owners that are mad at you and tenants that are mad at you or residents that are mad at you. And you kind of like, you almost like a defense against that is to be somewhat hard hearted. But what I will tell you is the longer I'm in this, I focus on like being very thick skinned, listening to people, but not letting people get to me because, you don't have control over who's going to give you a 1-star Google review and say all sorts of terrible things about you. And, you don't have a lot of control over whether a resident's going to get mad over an owner decision. And so, the thing I would say is like be thick skinned and soft hearted. And that's what that's the thing I've learned over the 20 years of doing this.
man, that's some good life advice right there.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think you're a nice guy. So, well, good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think about that business as a whole. I mean, you're right. No one's really there's always going to be someone upset, it seems like. And especially with 500 doors, 1,000 doors, and you got your team. Like there are so many people involved in the ecosystem. And I would be very interested, if we were at like a pest control conference or a construction conference, or like a semi-adjacent industry, right, with home services. I wonder if they're saying the same thing. I wonder if they're working with AI or is excited about the future of property management because we know there's a lot of great people in this space. And I think at a time like Broker Owner and what NARPM's able to host, like it allows everybody to be here like amongst their people and like really share the hard stuff and also the good stuff. And it's really special. Like you feel that vibe.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's why NARPM is so attractive to property managers, especially the folks that own the business, because you deal with so much stuff and it's nice to get around other people that are dealing with the same things. You can have friends at home that are not property managers that may have some empathy for you. And when you tell them how hard property management is, but you get here and you don't have to tell
Yeah.
anybody how hard it
There's no
is.
preface.
Everybody's coming from a minimum of, this is a hard business and let me tell you what happened to me. And so, it's fun to get around your peers and get around and tell some more stories.
Yeah, we had Bernard on this morning from Hearst. He has a PM company here in New Orleans, so he had some great stories. You'll have to listen to the episode
Yeah.
to hear it. But we're having a happy hour tonight, and he's bringing his wife. And he's like, "This is like the first time she'll be around another 85 property management owners. It's gonna be great. I get to kind of see that she's not alone too."
One of the things that, even as an entrepreneur and of course as a property manager's wife, I don't think that our spouses or significant others get enough of the credit, right? I mean, there was a Christmas morning I can remember dealing with a sewer backup issue in one of our homes, and my wife was very supportive. She allowed me to have a couple of hours on Christmas morning, which inevitably was super important to her and super important to our kids, to go fix this problem. And so, I don't think our spouses get enough of the credit.
That's a great word. Well, we're going to start landing the plane. A few rapid fire questions we always end with. I know you're a big book guy, so I feel like I could maybe answer this question for you, but I'm not going to. But what is one book or podcast every PM leader should be reading or listening to right now?
Yeah, I often quote The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. I was actually listening to a podcast that he's on today. And I think if you are a CEO that's just of a growing organization, that's like a must read. I don't know, like there's so many books though that I have created out of my mental models. I even created an LLM version of all of these people so
That's
that I can ask
awesome.
them questions. Right now I'm reading some Alex Hormozy stuff. Our experience is that some of the lead flow is starting to slow down. And so I'm starting to think, what can we do to generate more leads? And so I read whatever Evernest's biggest problem is, I'll start to read towards that. The other thing I would say, like if you're feeling stressed out about the business, reading biographies is one of the best things you can do as a leader, because what you'll realize when you read biographies is everybody deals with crap as they grow a business. And so the easiest biography for anybody to read that'll get you hooked on biographies is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's just like his story of starting Nike. This is the guy that founded Nike, will make you feel better about your troubles. And so if you're kind of in a spot where you're just kind of struggling to make sense of it all and it feels like the whole world's against you, that's a great book for somebody to start with.
I just want to highlight something real quick. I'm going to interrupt my own little lightning round. You talked earlier, you have a packed day. You got back to backs. You're at broker owner. It's a short trip, but you still took time to listen to a podcast this morning. I'm sure you were exercising while you were doing
I
it.
was.
And man, that's just one thing I've always respected about you. I mean, we're going on 15 years of knowing you. There's your commitment to like self development, but it doesn't feel like selfish development. Like it feels like you're developing yourself, yes, but it's also so you can lead the company better, lead your immediate team better, lead your family better. And I'm just always appreciate about you because you're always thinking of the influence, like even with traction. I mean, you're to the point now where you probably, I think I heard a podcast with you on it where it's like you could like almost quote word for word like pretty large sections of that book, like you know it so
For
well.
sure.
But man, I've always really respected that commitment to self development. That's actually not for yourself.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, if somebody follows me on LinkedIn, that's the whole idea of my LinkedIn is I think a lot of people are always putting their highlight reels, and we post some highlights, right? Like we won an award recently and we're very proud and we're able to put that on there. But I think what makes it somewhat attractive is the reality, right? I try to
Mhm.
post how I'm feeling about something, or something will happen to me out in the game and I'll have a thought about it and put it out there for everybody. And so, the other thing too is like if I want to grow the organization, John Maxwell, who's a leadership author and expert, says there's this law called the law of the lid.
Mhm.
And the organization will never grow bigger than the leader. And I feel the pressure of that if I want to continue to grow Evernest. What I have found is when I started Evernest and I had 30 doors, I was doing, everything from posting rents to putting signs in yards to talking to owners. And then my job today, I've like had to change who I was, and I haven't put a sign in a yard in probably 10 years, right? But I'm doing every bit as much to try to help Evernest grow, even though I'm not putting signs in yards. So if you're going to grow the organization, I guess the point is you're going to have to become a different person. And there's really only two ways to become a different person. It is to hang around different people, or which is super important too. Why things like Crane and mastermind groups work. And then the other thing is to read and consume content from other people. And so those are kind of like the two ways to grow. And so I do as much of that as I possibly can.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of humility in that. 'Cause I saw you join Crane. For those who don't know, it's a, for lack of a better term, mastermind group hosted by a friend of the pod and friend of both of us, Peter Lohman. And I was like, okay, Matthew's got 20,000 doors, probably one of the largest, PM owners in that group. But I know that you're going there to, yes, contribute, but also with the posture of like, hey, I got a lot to learn from these folks too.
Yeah.
Hey man, that's awesome. It really is inspiring. So a little more practical question here. What is one, we've already touched on some of it, so you can't use Claude,
Okay.
but what is one tool or software that people should know about right now?
Whisper flow.
I love Whisperflow.
One
Keep
of my
going.
yeah, like Graham, who's our president, introduced me to Whisperflow, and it has literally changed my world. Everything, it's not great on a phone, but on your computer, if you'll just download Whisperflow, you just hold down, I think it's the function button on my Mac. You just hold it down, and as you know, you can just talk. And is what I want to do is I can't type as fast as I can think, but I can talk as fast as I can think. And I want to just hit that button and tell the computer everything I'm thinking and get it all out of my brain. And Whisperflow is, I move so much faster today because of Whisperflow. It's a great tool.
It's amazing because too, if you have like an email, like with the person's name in like, let's say the, whatever it's supposed to be, the two line, and they have an interesting spelled name, and then you say their name, it always spells it exact.
Yep.
Once again, the future's laughing at me right now of like, of course.
Yeah.
I'm like, that blew my mind the first time I used it.
Well, we will look back one day and think our Siri on our phone was the most ridiculous thing that Apple ever did. The fact that Whisperflow who was the startup that started, a handful of years ago, kicked their rear end. Now, and Apple would tell you it's because of privacy and sharing, but man, Whisperflow is so good. And you're right, it is so accurate. And if it's not accurate, it's actually reading what you change so that it can be accurate next time.
It's crazy. So Whisperflow did not pay to sponsor this podcast, but we're open to sponsorships.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I'm happy to have Whisperflow sponsor
Yeah,
me.
I'll be a sponsored athlete, man. Next time we do a run. All right, man. Last one. What is one word to describe the future of property management?
Barbell.
You got to explain that one.
So I think what's going to happen in the future is that you're going to have some very scaled operators, and then you're going to have very boutique operators. Where I think people don't want to get caught is in the middle. I think what's going to happen on the scaled operators like Evernest of the world is that we're going to lean into AI technology. We're going to start to allow our clients who have been frustrated with us on how we handle things, let them handle more stuff with their decisioning on our rails, unbundle property management to them. That'll drive down the cost to the client. And basically, they will have more control to manage on our rails. I think that's what the future looks like for the bigger property managers. And I think the value that we have is not necessarily the technology, although that is a value today, but the future value that's going to be hard to disintermediate with technology is the boots on the ground in the markets. I think that Evernest, as weird as that is, like the analog of having the ability to do services for Evernest in 50 different markets is our unique competitive advantage. And, we can do that for full service property management, or we can do it for a DIY investor. We can lease for them. We can do maintenance. We can do turns. I think there's going to be the opposite of that, the boutique, where somebody's going to want a relationship. They're going to want it to feel like it's a real estate agent or high touch or high personality. And that's going to be there. Like in a world where there's a ton of technology, the opposite of that is high relation. And I think people will really be able to build a business on that. So what I tell people is like, hey, if you're all your owners know your name and they can call you and you have 200 to 300 doors, like you have a future in the business. I think the people that I would be nervous about is people that are somewhere in the middle that maybe don't know all their owners, but can't really spend the amount of money that we can spend on technology. To me, they would need to pick a lane. And I'm not saying they need to pick a lane in the next 6 months, but I think what's going to happen is this stuff's going to come faster than people expect. It's going to be one of those things that's going to be slow, 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 and then all of a sudden. And I think that, people have time to decide where they're going to be, but, and of course there's the adoption curve of, what people want. But, I will tell you, it's really hard for us as a big company today to recreate the mom and pop property manager, the boutique property manager. And that's been their competitive advantage for a long time. What I've seen over the last 3 to 4 months is us make up so much ground because of AI and technology to the boutique property manager that there's going to come a time that Evernest can execute every bit as well across every market as a boutique property manager.
That's a great word.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And also, that's very recent. You said 3 to 4 months.
I always had the confidence that technology was the difference in how we were going to be as good as the mom and pop. Now the technology is here, and it's really about how fast can we implement the technology. The way I say it is the technology is there today to make the new property manager on my team that has been there 30 days as effective in decision making as the property manager that's been doing it 30 years. It's here. Like, the technology is here. It's just how fast can we implement it? And so that's the thing I would say for people that are listening is this is going to happen. We're doing, like, the perfect example is just the gym that I talked about with the, how to handle a repair. It literally walks them step by step through how to handle a repair. That's like an edge case repair. And so, I think that middle piece is what's going to get cut out here.
It's a great word to end on.
Yeah.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was great.
Awesome, man.
Enjoyed it.
Safe travels.
Yeah.
We riding back together? You going to jump in the truck with me?
I was hoping you would fly me on your private jet home.
Yeah. Well,
The Kalmar jet's not.
Give me a few more searches and we'll make it happen.
All right. Good.
All right, man. Appreciate it again.
Yeah. Appreciate your friendship. For those of you who don't know, Dylan landed some of our best team members, including the guy that's here with me today at the conference, who is one of our best leaders in our organization. So appreciate all the work you did for us.
Well, I really appreciate the support, man. Yeah, it was fun to ride Gray's coattails in front of him. Usually I just talk about him. Now I just point at him.
Yeah.
So, no, it's great, man. Y'all been great friends over the years. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Thanks for having
so
me.
much. See ya.